2017 version as well here.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yo también lo tenía de
Del Ubuntu y Chino,
Ubuntu.
Light of the Path,
Light of
for
the Path.
example.
Yes. Are you guys okay?
Sí,
Kiddies?
no, good, gracias.
Okay. So it's, okay, great. Welcome to your practice. This is some talking on the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga practice, explanation, instructions on how to do this practice. And I'm actually using a couple of versions because a number of people have this version of the practice. And then in 2017, it was updated, and some people have this. So they're very similar, and as we're using different books at different times, I'll mention the page numbers in each text. To begin, it's a wonderful practice to do in the morning. And the main thing we'd like to do right now to start this session on the instruction is to consider our motivation, why we want to learn more about this practice. And in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we're very focused on benefiting all living beings. The means to do that is to become a Buddha, a fully awakened being, an enlightened being. But that's not the end. That's not the end result necessarily. The end is, the purpose is to benefit all sentient beings, or every sentient being. That's what we're doing. So with that in mind, you can take a moment to set your motivation. If we can direct our mind in that way, that we would like to understand more about the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga practice, so that we can do the practice well, and that it will plant deep seeds of virtue in our minds that will ripen in us becoming a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. So for the purpose of all living beings, we will talk about this wonderful practice. The very beginning, and this is on page 3 in this version, the older version. Page 3 actually on both versions, and it starts, as many sadhanas start, with refuge and bodhicitta. Taking refuge, generating bodhicitta. Sadhana is a Sanskrit word that means method of accomplishment. So it's a type of practice we would do, often involving an aspect of the Buddha, a deity. And it's a method that through the practice you accomplish that deity's mindset, accomplish enlightenment, like that. Guru Yoga practices are very profound in our tradition. And the actual word guru, which is spiritual friend in Sanskrit, sometimes they say lama in Tibetan, which is one who is heavy, meaning heavy with realizations. So the guru is the heart of the path, is really, with a proper qualified guru, you can make great strides on the path. And so that's what guru is really relating to. And it's relating to sometimes having an external teacher who manifests to remind you of the qualities in yourself and to help you develop those qualities as quickly as possible, so that you're not getting, that you can get enlightened quickly, that you're not suffering anymore, and things like that. And that's the purpose of the spiritual teacher, is to get you free of your suffering as quickly as possible. So there are other Guru Yoga practices, like the 6-session Guru Yoga. That's a commitment you'd have to do after taking a highest Yoga Tantra initiation. There is the Lama Chopa, which is another profound Guru Yoga a practice related to highest yoga tantra. But the reason the Lama Tsongkhapa is great is you don't need a highest yoga tantra empowerment to practice it. And it really gets you in the mode to start to add on other practices like that once you understand. The essence of guru yoga, we have to remember, is you want to remember and place everything in a state of emptiness as much as you can. So emptiness in a sense of that everything lacks an inherent nature. It lacks any concreteness existing from its own side. These are all synonyms of inherent nature. Things only arise dependent on other things, so they don't exist independently. Everything changes. There's no permanence about them. And so all of those things are relating to put your mind in a sense of this lack of inherent nature. Things do not arise as solidly as I expect them to, as I'm seeing them as. Things don't exist the way they appear to us. And so if we can kind of remind ourselves of whatever knowledge we have about emptiness, even if it's a small knowledge of it, somehow to place it there, reminding yourself of the spiritual teacher that we will visualize in this sense as Lama Tsongkhapa, but that Lama Tsongkhapa is inseparable from your particular teacher, guru, any manifestation of them you have, and that that is also inseparable from the Buddha and the omniscient mind altogether, and that it is, in a sense, an aspect of your own highest wisdom, compassion, loving kindness, like that. Guru yoga, like that. And what happens is it transforms our ordinary view. So we often have ordinary view that is preventing us from seeing everything in a more divine realm. And so I find that relating to a teacher in a good way, relating to them appropriately, they're a continual reminder, as much as possible. The higher their realizations, more of a quality, of a qualified, accurate reminder of why we're on this path. Why do I want to get enlightened? And so if you have the proper guru, they can really shortcut the path to you and transform that ordinary conceptual view that often has us thinking less about ourselves and others, or tremendously grasping on to ourselves and others in unhealthy ways. So this is the kind of thing we're trying to transform. Okay, it starts with refuge and bodhicitta, and these are all quite similar in many practices, and this is our standard 4-line refuge prayer. As a lot of people know, this refuge prayer contains the whole path. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, by my practice of giving and other perfections. May I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Normally we place our hands at the heart during this prayer. It's recited 3 times, slowly, so that you have some thought about what is refuge and bodhicitta. What is refuge and bodhicitta, which again spans the entire, all 3 scopes of the Lam Rim. So initially we're reminding ourselves, instead of just blah blah with the words, and when we start to do practices every day, you start spacing out and you're reciting words, but your mind is over here. So you really want to think about, I have a fantastic rebirth, and actually it's quickly passing, and I'm going to die soon. Death and impermanence is a reminder. And when I do die, there is a chance I could come back in a less fortunate state. So what motivates me is I really need some sort of protection, refuge, and you can understand and study the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the 3 jewels of refuge, that's where we seek protection from more suffering. Rinpoche now calls them the 3 rare sublime ones. The 3 rare sublime ones as a more accurate definition. So, and I'm going for refuge so that then I can learn the proper behavior, so I can avoid negative patterns, enhance positive qualities, and that brings in the notion of karma. And all of that is from the motivation of the lower capable being. I would traverse through those topics. Why? Because I'm terrified that when I die it's going to be really bad. And that motivates me to practice. build on that motivation, then I realized that even in the realm I'm in as a human, which is pretty good, but there's still a lot of suffering. So if I could bring about an end to my own suffering, that would be fantastic. And that brings us to liberation, nirvana. It brings us through the scope for the medium motivated person, that I really want to get rid of my own suffering. Done. Then you move into the greater scope, motivation, and you start to realize that if I'm free of suffering, all these other beings are suffering, not good enough at all. And if I could really reach a fully awakened state and develop the good heart of bodhicitta, this enlightened attitude of cherishing others more than myself, then I can become a Buddha with the right view, and then I'm unlimited in helping all others, directing them to enlightenment and getting them free of suffering as quickly as possible. So the whole scope is subsumed, we'd say, in this prayer, and you really want to have some recollection of that when you start off the motivation. What am I doing this for? Like that. So that would be recited 3 times. And okay, and then Rinpoche adds, if you don't have your own practice, if you're not doing your own, this is wrapped up in your own practice, because I have some other preliminary prayers I have to do, but what Rinpoche says is, in the newer version, you're going to visualize the merit field, but Rinpoche's added in our retreat prayer books, and there's a preliminary prayers, and there's some basic prayers that you can do that kind of set the mind up, unless you have another practice that you're doing. So that's also nice to think about that. And what he does is, so it's good to recite the prayers in the preliminary practice, and he adds them in here, pages 4 to 6. So if somebody's short of time, you may not be able to do those prayers, but it's really, again, helpful for the mind, like that. Great.
Oops.
If you've already done those preliminary prayers as part of another practice, then that's fine. You just start with the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. So there's ways to eventually start to create your practice. Okay. So, and then Rinpoche says, if that's the case, then you would start, and you've already done the preliminary prayers, you would go to the new version on page 7, and that actually starts the what's called Ganden La Gema, the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, or you would, and in the older book, it starts on page 8. But I'm going to go through the preliminary prayers. I think it's helpful. So what you're doing initially with refuge and bodhicitta is we're going to visualize objects of refuge. And there is we know about an elaborate Lama Tsongkhapa refuge field, or you can actually say a Buddha Shakyamuni is more appropriate, with the Buddha in the center. It's described in some of the more detailed Lamrim versions and Lamrim texts. But what's important is, if it's too much for the mind, you visualize Shakyamuni Buddha in front. And you can think a little bit, inseparable from my guru, inseparable from my teachers. And then he's surrounded by his own refuge lineage all around that looks a bit like a smaller version of the Lama Tsongkhapa merit field, which is very elaborate. So it can be a little bit simpler, a little bit less lamas in there, and then you can visualize that. If that's difficult, you just want to visualize the Buddha, that's fine. And then you would start the refuge and bodhicitta, and then these are preliminary prayers again, and then we start with, in the older version at the bottom of page 3, it's the meditation on the 4 immeasurable thoughts, and in the new version, it's on page 4, the 4 immeasurable thoughts, it says. So this is a longer version of what's called the 4 immeasurables. The 4 immeasurables is very profound prayers of wishing others to have immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, and immeasurable equanimity. And in these versions, it starts with, and they can be in different orders, it starts with immeasurable equanimity, then immeasurable love, which here it says loving kindness, immeasurable compassion, and immeasurable joyfulness. And so what you can do is slowly read the prayers depending on how much time you have, with some feeling. And if you have time, Rinpoche has added in that you can do a brief Tonglen meditation. And this is particularly in the newer version, page 4. So that if you're wishing, for instance, all beings to abide in equanimity, which is the first verse, then Rinpoche adds, meditate briefly on Tonglen, imagining that as you're inhaling, you're taking on the disturbing emotions of living beings that prevent them from having equanimity. Doesn't harm you, it harms a constricted knot of your self-cherishing around your core or heart center. And as you exhale, you offer all the moments you've had of equanimity like that to all living beings. So if you have time, you can add that in. Don't have time, you go on. And Rinpoche gives small notes of, Rinpoche says in the new version to replace the original words in the second one, immeasurable loving kindness, and instead of for all beings to have happiness, Rinpoche has changed it to achieve Buddhahood. This is a distinction between the older version and the newer version. So the paragraph of measurable loving kindness, and Rinpoche said because happiness tends to bring to mind for us samsaric happiness, meaning temporary, superficial happiness, okay? But when you really think of a happiness that is about me achieving Buddhahood, that's real happiness. So that's what we're wishing for others. And it's neat how Rinpoche has updated prayers to bring into mind, the changing mind and what really, he's always fine-tuning, making those adjustments of something that will work better for us, that's better for our minds. And then the older version, again, if you have this book, you can certainly just read those paragraphs slowly. And it's very nice to also think, because we have the Buddha in front of us, inseparable you could think from the Guru, the deity, like that. And it does have lines, please, Guru deity, bless me to be able to do this. So when you can read that, really feel in your heart, like, I really want to be able to do this. So please help me. We can't do it alone often, so please bless my mind. And those are the 4 immeasurables that end with the bottom of page 5 in the newer version, and it goes up to the top of page 5 in the older version. Then in the older version on page 5, there is a paragraph of generating special bodhicitta, and then it goes to purifying the place and a more elaborate offering prayer. And it's changed from the newer version. And what Rinpoche has in the new version now on page 27 is Appendix 1. And this is where Rinpoche has inserted the offering prayer. So when people have time, it's really nice to be able to do that. And there's also simpler ways you can do an offering prayer. So just to talk about the offering prayer a little bit, if in the new version, page 27, Appendix 1, blessing, multiplying, and presenting the offerings. And in the old version, it's the bottom of page 5. So if we actually want to look at, in the new version, page 6 has purifying the place, which is in the bottom of page 5 in the old version. And what you're first doing with that purifying the place is you want to visualize now, I'm going to get my practice set up for a beautiful, pure realm. Again, this is always uplifting for the mind, and this is about transforming ordinary thoughts that may be negative and less than generous. So you can read that verse if you're doing the practice. Then if you want, go to page 27 in the new version for the offering prayer, or you just turn the page in the old version, pages 6 and 7 is this offering prayer. We do this in a lot of practices. And I think the purpose is from us to even visualize offerings, for us to make offerings if we choose, of any kind, creates a flourishing of the Dharma in our life. It's about our prosperity. That's how you create prosperity, is through generosity. It also helps us to consider other beings' experiences. So the way I tend to like to do it, depending how long of time I have, is I read the verse, May Divine, and this is on page 27 of the new version, or page 6 of the old, offering prayer. And you read the paragraph, May Divine and Human Offerings, like that, and then you go to the offering cloud mantra, which is the bottom, page 27 in the new version, or the bottom of page 6 in the old version, offering cloud mantra. This is a beautiful prayer. I'm going to read it through one time so you hear how it's pronounced. Not that my pronunciation is all that good. We usually put our hands together, and as we're doing the prayer, we want to visualize in this pure realm we just visualized that it's filled with extensive offerings, whatever we would like to imagine. Traditionally, people have water bowls on their altar. The water bowls from left to right represent water for drinking, water for washing or washing the feet. Those two bowls on another level represent our joyous effort, which is effort to practice positive things or virtue. It's not just effort, but effort directed in virtuous ways. The third water bowl is flowers, which is our merits. Fourth water bowl represents incense or pure morality. The fifth water bowl are light offerings, or the wisdom realizing emptiness. Light dispels the darkness of ignorance. The next bowl are scented oils or waters like massage oils that represent our virtues. The next bowl is food offerings, that's about meditative stabilization. And the last bowl is music, a music offering, and representing prayers and dedications. So what you'd like to do is we recite this prayer, and I'm just going to recite it one time through, is to visualize all those offerings I just mentioned on a tangible level, and symbolically their real meaning, and visualize it going out, spreading out, filling all the space as vast as you can imagine. So if you want to imagine flowers or filling, you can imagine incense, a smoke, a beautiful incense spreading up like that through space. And then you want to visualize the 6 realms of sentient beings experience. And I like to, when I'm more time, I start at the bottom with the hell realms, and I slowly just visualize first cold hells, and it turns, hot hells. So my offerings transform into a cooling nectar, cooling breezes, anything that cools and pacifies all their suffering until they're ultimately happy. Then the cold hells, I visualize warming sun, warm pools of water, baths, warm breezes, visualizing releasing their suffering. And then you go up to the different things. So then it would be Preta, hungry ghost realm. They're starving, they're hungry, visualize incredible food offerings, nectar, quenching their thirst, relieving the hunger, and they're fine. Very happy. Then the animal realm, then the human realm, then the jealous God realm, and then the God realm, hedonistic God realm. So however long you have, you can take a while to visualize these beings. You don't have much time. You think of all of them together. What can I offer? My offerings transform into that, immediately alleviating their suffering, bringing them to ultimate happiness. That. Then you can visualize all the holy beings. We've got the Buddha out there, with all, and it brings great bliss to their minds. Offerings that are empty in nature. That. If you want to take it a little step further, the 3 circles of emptiness to offer like that. So myself is empty of inherent nature, the offerer. The act of offering also is empty of inherent nature because it depends on having something to offer and somebody to offer to. So it just doesn't exist in its own being. And then to whom I'm offering, the merit field, the refuge field. Actually, in this case, a refuge field, making offerings to, and also empty of inherent nature. You could even say the offering is empty itself, okay? And then, so let's have a moment. We will recite this offering cloud mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vajrasarva Parmadane Tathagataya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tayata Om Vajre Vajre Maha Vajre Ma Teja Vajre Ma Vidya Vajre Ma Bodhicitta Vajre Maha Bodhi Mendo Prasamkramana Vajre Sarva Karma Avarana Vishodana Vajre Soha. You would recite that 3 times. So in the text, when there is an E at the end of the word, it's often pronounced as A, like Bhagavate. THs is a very, it's not th, but it's like a softer T, Tathagata, Tathagataya, like that. And the last word, Soha, the Tibetans don't have a V in their language, so it's difficult for them to pronounce V. So you can say Soha, or some people say Svaha. Both are fine. And then if you turn the page in the new version, page 28, Extensive Power of Truth. In the older version, the top of page 7, the prayer that's on page 7. And then you could read this as well while we're making the offerings. So there's, this is the updated version. And then again, purifying everything into emptiness, and it becomes very powerful for the holy beings. They're very happy to receive the offering. So we create a lot of virtue, even just mentally making the offering. So again, if you have time, you can add it in. It is in the old version. And what we skipped was on page 5 in the old version, generating special bodhicitta. And you certainly have an option if you want to include that if you have the older version. Then the appendices go on in the new version with Appendix 2, which are some other meditations that you can try when you have the time and you want to go into that. Okay. So right now we are on page, the actual practice in the new version, page 7. And in the old version, we are on page 8, invocation. So at this point, what can be done is you can dissolve the Shakyamuni Buddha refuge field, all of it dissolving into Shakyamuni Buddha, if you had lamas around. You can just dissolve the Buddha, and all of it dissolves from right into his heart into a golden drop of light. And imagine that drop melting into your forehead, absorbing into you, and you get all the blessings of Shakyamuni Buddha's holy body, speech, and mind. And now what we're going to do, and some people just do this right from the beginning without the Shakyamuni Buddha refuge field, is they put Lama Tsongkhapa and his two disciples in the space in front. If you want to be more elaborate, you can visualize his whole merit field. But if not, Lama Tsongkhapa, who is basically an emanation of all of that merit field, and the two disciples are kind of seated lower at his knees, like that. And then what you'd like to do at some point is, I'll explain, because some people like to do this with Lama Tsongkhapa, the two disciples on your crown. Also fine, it's whatever you're comfortable, or you can, when you start to do the mantra, then you could have him come to your crown, where a replica can stay out there, and then the light rays coming down. So the invocation means, now that I visualize Lama Tsongkhapa, now I'd like to breathe life into the visualization, asking them to come. So you recite the invocation from the heart of the Savior, of the 100 deities of Tushita. That's Lama Tsongkhapa, he's the Savior. From his heart on the peak of a cloud, resembling a clump of extremely white, fresh curd, King of Dharma, Omniscient Losang Drakpa, which is his ordained name, okay, please come here together with your sons. Those are his two disciples. So I'm asking him to come. There's a symbol in the book. You can ring a bell during the invocations, that's fine. And you see the first words, Ganden La Jia. They say sometimes Ganden La Gema. So that's where it gets the name Ganden La Gema. the 100 deities of Tushita, like that. And he was the founder of Ganden Monastery, which all is connected. That's why they call him that, and that's why they have this practice related to him. The next thing you come to is request to remain for a long time. And in the older version, it says requesting to have a stable life. So what they're now taking you through basically is a more elaborate 7-limb prayer. And that's pretty much the heart of the practice. So the 7 limbs are 7 lines. The shortest version is there's 1 line per limb, but in this one we have a verse of 4 lines for each experience. So, and this one's starting, because sometimes the 7 limbs start in a different order, and this one starts with asking the Lama to stay, to remain a long time. We're basically asking them to stay until samsara ends, because we need guidance, we need help. So this one starts with that, and it tells you in the newer version what to visualize. In this case, Lama Tsongkhapa in the space in front, perhaps with a more elaborate merit field. And it says, visualize numberless replicas of yourself offering beautiful golden thrones to Lama Tsongkhapa, the 2 disciples, and any other teachers, lamas you'd like to put in the space in front. Each one you're offering beautiful golden throne. They all go out from your heart at the same time. On the golden throne in the front is beautiful brocade that has a double dorje, and that's a long life symbol. So usually if we're doing a long life puja for a lama, we would get the brocade that has that and put that on the front of the throne. I think when we were walking around Boda the last day when you were shopping, I bought one for the New York Center because I knew they didn't have, so I thought in the future when a lama comes and it's on, and usually you at least have one on the front of their table or on the front of their throne because it's a symbol of long life. And the long life pujas, it's actually, the second one is offered to them that's then secured on the front of the throne to represent long life. Okay. And so then you'd read the next verse of In the Sky Before Me with this in mind that I'm offering the golden throne. So the standard, let me just go through the standard 7-limb. Normally it starts with number 1 is homage, paying homage, which is respect to the Buddhas. And when you recite a short 7-line prayer like this, I usually put my hands together in the mudra of prostration. Thumbs are always inside, like the jewel in the lotus. And then I would first think, reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. So if I have a moment, I might visualize myself, infinite forms of me making prostrations to whatever emanation of the Buddha I am visualizing. I confess all negativity. The next one would be reverently I prostrate my body, speech, and mind. I make offerings of any kind emanated and truly visualized like that. So then there's an offering limb, again, which is about having the flow of Dharma in your life or your own prosperity. Then we have confession, number 3. So similar to Catholics, we have a confession where whatever negative things I've done, I sincerely confess from my heart in the short form. Number 4 is rejoicing at virtues. So with confession, we don't wallow in guilt about it, but there's also some good things that I've done, and I appreciate that. And I also think about what other beings have done that is good, rejoice at that, and particularly think about holy beings, highly realized beings, and I can certainly rejoice at all their good deeds. And then we have normally asking the Buddhas to remain. Asking them is another limb, and then asking them to teach. And when you ask them to teach, you're visualizing offering Dharma chakras, 1,000-spoked wheels go out, because that represents asking them to turn the wheel. Dharma represents teaching. And then you dedicate the merits, like that. I think I got all the different limbs. Did I forget anything? I think that's pretty much. Okay, so prostration, yeah, great. So this one, what they did is they're actually starting with please remain until samsara ends. Then we go into bottom of page 8, prostration. That's in the older version. And in the new version, it's the top of page 8. And this goes right through the 7 limbs. And Rinpoche mentions with prostration, and this is in the older version, at the new version, the top of page 8, the old version bottom. And Rinpoche is mentioning in the older version, if you like, he's talking about then you can insert the offering prayer if you'd like to do an offering prayer, because this is about before the actual offerings. Some people then spend more time doing an offering prayer there as well, you can do. And then we go to the offering version, then confession, then rejoicing, and then request to turn the wheel of Dharma. And now we're in the new version at the bottom of page 9. So you just read through these slowly with thought about what you're saying. And now in the older version, we are in the middle of page 10. In the newer version, Rinpoche mentions, and there's a little bit of a mention in the older version, this is where you'd visualize replicas of yourself. And it says in the form of Brahma, which could be a kind of another god, or in the Brahmins in Hindus are kind of the top caste. But your offering, basically, it could also be you in your own form offering this golden spoked, 1,000-spoked wheel that represents turning the wheel of Dharma. And it says if you actually have a little Dharma chakra, these little wheels, sometimes you can buy in Nepal and things, you could hold that up while you do. And then you read the request to turn the wheel of Dharma. Then the dedication prayer, top of page 10 in the new version, bottom of page 10 in the old version. And then we come to the mandala offering. Mandala is world system. And this is actually, the verse is the short mandala, this ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers. So you're visualizing just a world system, and you want, if you can, have the visualization multiplying out amazing world systems. In the Gelugpa tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, they believe it's more helpful if on every atom of that mandala are infinite more mandalas. So it's really about mind expansion. So you, as best as you can, if you like during the practice, some people will put their hands like this, which is a symbol of the mandala, symbol of the world. So the ring fingers back to back represent Mount Meru, which we recite in the verse, adorned with Mount Meru. And then it says the 4 continents. So with the hands like this and the fingers, you get 4 different situations. These represent the 4 continents. And you imagine anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, like that. I'm imagining it as a Buddha land. You can also do the chant in Tibetan if you know it. And a short form of that is Saji Pugi Jujin Meto Tram Riran Lim Zin Nindeng Gempadi Sange Zing Du Mig De Uwagi Jokyun Nam Da Jin La Chu Parjo. And then in the newer version, with the hands like this, it has a verse that Rinpoche has added at the bottom of page 10, top of page 11. And Rinpoche's put a little paragraph above that says, with your hands still in the mudra if you'd like to do, by the merits of having offered this mandala to Lama Tsongkhapa and his 2 sons, may I, my family members, and all sentient beings be able to meet, practice, and actualize the teachings of the victorious one, Losang Drakpa. And then you skip down, because it already says, may we meet the teachings of the victorious one, Losang Drakpa. So then you go to, who had the morality of an eminently pure way of life, was courageous in the extensive conduct of the sons of the victorious ones, and accomplished the yoga of the 2 stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. And then the last verse, Yedam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niratayami, is asking the Guru to please accept this mandala, this precious mandala. And you tend to collapse your hands into you so that you're receiving the blessings and realizations. And it is similar in the older version with the short mandala, page 11. And then it's a slightly different version that Rinpoche has of due to the merits of having offered this mandala, but very similar. So there's just an updated version. Then we come to the visualization. So I've kind of set up nice 7-limb prayer, a little bit more elaborate, Lama Tsongkhapa, 2 disciples in the space in front. And now it says, 3 hollow white beams of light are emitted from the hearts of Lama Tsongkhapa and the 2 disciples. The beams they end up mixing as one, entering your crown. So, and this is on the bottom of page 11 in the old version, or further up the page on page 11 in the newer version. And then Rinpoche does add, for this to become a guru yoga practice, it's important to maintain the awareness who is in essence is the 3 deities, that the awareness that the root guru, if you have a root guru, your main teacher, the person who's really turned your mind to the Dharma, that person is inseparable from Lama Tsongkhapa. And Lama Tsongkhapa is the essence of all 3 deities, which is Manjushri, infinite wisdom. So it says here, the embodiment of all the Buddha's wisdom. Avalokiteshvara, and these are their names in Sanskrit, the embodiment of all the Buddha's compassion, infinite compassion. Vajrapani, the embodiment of all the Buddha's power. So we have wisdom, compassion, power in their most glorious forms, only there to benefit all living beings. And this is Lama Tsongkhapa, who is one with your root guru. So that makes a guru yoga. If you're not having those thoughts, not guru yoga. But the power of guru yoga on your mind stream is so much more profound than any of us really realize. So initially what we're doing when we don't really understand the practices, perhaps when we don't get a feeling of them, is we continue to try over and over that it leaves, and have some faith slowly developing that it must be leaving some positive imprint on my mind stream. And you will notice changes in your life. You will feel better. You will notice also in periods of great distress in your lives that that's what you're calling up more, to ask for help. And they come and they help you. You may not see anything, but I've definitely had experiences in my life without having any great realizations where I just feel some sort of support or protection, some sort of boost like that. We turn to a lot of other things for help, and those things don't really necessarily help all that much, okay? And then what you're doing, so now what you're doing is I've got this emanation in the space in front, and here you can, okay, we've already done that. Here you can actually, if you'd like, bring Lama Tsongkhapa and the disciples over your crown, so an aspect of them leaves that field in front, comes to your crown, and again, the 2 disciples are lower, but out of their hearts comes this white light of healing energy, purifying energy, and then it joins, but it's over here, and then it comes down through you. That's what you're trying to visualize as best as you can. And then here in the newer version, page 11, it has visualization for cleaning impurities, and it talks about the hollow beams of light are emitted, and just basically what you're trying to visualize. They combine into one, enter my crown. And then it has the white nectar coming down, flows through this tube, right through your crown, and again, cleansing all sicknesses, spirit harms, negative karmas, obscurations, and their imprints without anything remaining, okay? And then as you can, as you're doing it, your body becomes pure and clear as crystal. And we just keep doing it. Just keep to maintain the, like that. So here, in the old version, top of page 12, it mentions about the milk-colored lights coming down. Similar thing. And then you go to what's called the 9-line prayer to Lama Tsongkhapa. In the new version, this is page 12. This is a longer version of the mantra we normally recite with this practice, and Rinpoche just likes us to get a little bit of a sense, so he's saying you can recite it a few times, and you're still doing this visualization of the light coming down before you recite the 5-line version. Okay? And what we're basically doing is this is a request, and you can read through it about naming the 3 deities. So Vajradhara is the primordial Buddha from which they all come. But then I have Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, Lord of Secrets, Vajrapani, okay? And Losang Drakpa, crown ornament of the sages of the land of snow. To you, Guru Buddha, embodying 3 refuges, I make requests with my 3 doors. Please bless me, to be ripened and liberated, me and others. Bestow the common, supreme and common realizations. Bless me to become quickly like you. So if you'd like, you can recite that in English or Tibetan a few times. Then we come to the 5-line mixema. 5-line mixema. This would be at the bottom of page 12 in the old version to the top of page 13, or in the new version, the same. Bottom of page 12, top of 13. And Rinpoche says this is mainly the mantra that's recited if you are trying to complete a Guru Yoga Nundro. Nundro is preliminary practice, and these are practices we do usually before we want to practice a lot of highest yoga tantra, possibly before we want to go into like a 3-year retreat. And we have 9 different types of practices we do of our Nundro in this tradition, in the Gelugpa tradition. So the mixema is the verses, the mantra we're reciting, and you complete 100,000 of those. So if you do 100 every day after 3 years, that's 100,000. But again, you want to do it with the right concentration. We're not reciting mantras in front of the TV and things like that, or while we're surfing the internet. And so then Rinpoche mentions, while doing this 5-line mantra, concentrate mainly on purifying negative karmas collected from beginningless time with the Guru. Maybe you've in the past harmed the Guru's body, you've had disrespectful thoughts, you disobeyed advice, disturbed the mind of the Guru, any non-devotional thoughts, all of this, criticize the Guru, broken vows. These are kind of the heaviest negative karma we get into, so this is what can purify. So while I'm reciting this, I've got the light coming down, washing all of that out of me. And if you're doing, let's say, if you're able to do a mala a day, 1 rosary circle a day, maybe half of it is done with this visualization of the purification. But again, you can alternate and see what works for you. And then, and then what you can do is you can alternate through something called the 7 wisdoms. In the middle of page 13, in the new version, is the 5-line mixema. In the older version, it's 12 and 13. I'm just going to recite this a few times so you get the sense of what it sounds like in the Tibetan. But one time in English is Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of non-objectifying compassion, Manjushri, master of stainless wisdom, Lord of secrets, again refers to Vajrapani, destroyer of the entire host of Maras. Mara is delusion. Tsongkhapa, crown ornament of the sages of the land of snow, who again is a manifestation of all those 3 deities. Losang Drakpa, his ordained name, at your feet I make requests. So the requesting process is very important in Tibetan Buddhism, and we don't really understand that we have to make requests for teachers to come and teach. We can request the teachers to give specific teachings, requests for our practice of what we want to have manifest in our practice. You really need to ask for it. If you have issues, deeper issues with your family, you want to clear a path so you can do more practice, you want success for your group or your center, make requests. It's really powerful. Make requests in the right way, having the right visualization. Because we request a lot of things that are mundane. Usually we want this, we want that. But so this is really heartfelt to create a more flourishing of the Dharma in our lives and to help us progress quickly along the path. That's the essence of that with all the deities. Again, remembering Lama Tsongkhapa is a manifestation of those 3 days combined in him, inseparable from your root guru, like that. And then if you turn the page in the old version, this is pages 14 and 15, you have the 7 wisdoms and what you visualize. In the newer version, it goes from page 13 to the top of page 18, but it's the same thing. And so what you're trying to do when you have some more time and you want to recite a little bit more, you want to do the visualizations of the 7 wisdoms. And why? Because it brings wisdom to you. So some people have said to me, I'm not interested in reading about emptiness. I don't get it. I don't like to meditate on it. I don't understand. I tried to read this book. I don't understand. This is what helps you understand. And it really works. So if you don't have time to do each 7 wisdoms each time that you want to do it, then just take one at a time and you get familiar. What it does say is the first 4 wisdoms, technically it's better to do a little bit of those. Those are the more important ones. And if you have time, you add on the other 3. But you have to see in your time, you want to get used to first and practice in what you're doing, and then it gets faster and faster and you're more comfortable with it. So the first wisdom, and Rinpoche does say focus mainly on the first 4 wisdoms. That is more important. And the visualizations of the last 3 can be done as needed, depending on your activities. And you're doing these visualizations while reciting Miksema. So here's how it's pronounced. And I'm not the best with my pronunciation, but Migme Tsewe, Turten Chenrezi, Drime Kempe, Wampo, Jampel Yang, Dupu Malu, Jamze, Sangwe Dag, Ganchen Kepe, Zungen Tsongkapa, Lozan Drape, Zabla So Wa De. Again, Mime Tsewe, Turchen Chenrezig, Drime Kempe, Wampo, Jampel Yang, Dupu Malu, Jamze, Sangwe Dag, Ganchen Kepe, Zungen Tsongkapa, Lozan Drape, Zabla So Wa De. Once you get familiar with it, beginning very slowly, make sure you're reciting each syllable properly. Then you can go at any pace that you like. And it does get quicker and quicker. Okay. Then the 7 wisdoms. What am I visualizing? Okay. And let me just point you to in the new version. I want to just see, I think they have this. Okay. So I'm not sure it actually explains, but I will bring it in from the older book. So with the first verse that you are reciting, the first wisdom, and this is great wisdom. So what you can visualize with great wisdom is you can have tiny manjushris, orange in color, the standard way we visualize the Buddha of infinite wisdom. He's got a sword, and the sword slashes delusion. So you'd like to get a picture to know what Manjushri looks like. And you can search online, it's very easy to find. And you have infinite Manjushris, lots of them, coming from this white nectar. It's now full of that. And it's almost like sunbeams coming down through your crown, infinite, granting you great wisdom. Here it says in the older version, page 14, great understanding or great wisdom in the form of orange-colored nectar beams clarified as Lord Manjushri is emitted from Lama Tsongkhapa, the 2 sons, absorbing into me, filling my entire body. Okay, the atoms of the nectars clarified as Manjushri, okay, they radiate out to the victorious ones of the sons, radiating out into all 10 directions, okay? And then the great understanding of these holy beings comes back, okay? And it comes back into the form of the deity's holy bodies, Manjushri particularly, absorbing into me and filling my whole body. So you kind of have coming in, going out, hooking all their wisdom, blessings in the form of Manjushri, and you're filled with that. Great understanding or great wisdom. However much time you have, you do, however much time you have. Then, in the new version, turning the page to page 14, clear wisdom. Clear wisdom. And it gives a little explanation. What's clear wisdom? And it says, bless me to achieve clear wisdom that's not confused about subtle and detailed, difficult points. So each one's slightly different. Because great wisdom that is unimpeded in discerning the meanings of the infinite scriptures. So they each have a slightly different version of what I'm trying to bring into my mind. With clear wisdom, you can visualize orange-colored nectar beams that are in the syllables of Manjushri's mantra, Om Arapatanadi. Don't worry if you don't know every syllable in Tibetan or if you're not really sure of that. Just visualize these orange nectar beams coming in with that whole mantra in English or the Tibetan. It dissolves into your crown. Again, it goes out, offering that to all the victorious ones to hook all their blessings and realizations, and then the clear wisdom comes in, absorbing into you, filling your entire body, mind. And however many mantras you'd like to recite during that, that's fine. Number 3, quick wisdom. This is the top of page 15 in the new version, and in the middle of page 14 in the old version. Quick wisdom cuts through non-understanding, misunderstanding, and doubt, and this will be absorbed as the syllable D. Orange-colored nectar beams in the form of the syllable D, D-H-I, which is Manjushri's seed syllable. So it's like an object of concentration when you're focusing on him or doing retreat with Manjushri. Again, that absorbs to you. It goes out to all the holy beings in the 10 directions. Their blessings come back in for us to have quick wisdom. And imagine whole body and mind filled with that. Then number 4, profound wisdom. In the new version, this is the bottom of page 15, or bottom of page 14 in the older version. This is orange-colored nectar beams that are clarified as the implements. In Lama Tsongkhapa's case, his implements are text and a sword. So you'll see, if you see a statue of him, he has an elaborate thing in this way, and on one part of it is a sword, again, because he's related to Manjushri, cutting through ignorance, and he has a text, basically Prajnaparamita, the text on emptiness, fundamental text on emptiness. So again, we're now visualizing texts and swords coming in as orange-colored light beams, filling our entire being, going out to the 10 directions, holy beings, and then you absorb all of that, filling your body, granting you profound wisdom. In the new version, the next page, page 16, wisdom of explaining. So again, those first 4 wisdoms we just talked about, Rinpoche says those are important to focus on if you don't have time for the other 3. What some people will do, however, if they don't have time for the wisdoms, they at least do the dissolution of the white nectar coming down. So it's purifying you, but it's nice to try the different wisdoms at times. The last 3 wisdoms are the wisdom of explaining, the wisdom of debating, and the wisdom of writing or composing, Dharma commentaries and things like that. The visualizations of these, and these take you through, in the new version, to the top of page 18. And we're now on page 15 in the old version. First, for the wisdom of explaining the Dharma, you will have only text this time. Instead of text and swords, you're dissolving text into you. The visualization is with that. Number 6, for debating, you have now not just one sword, but a wheel of swords. And that represents debating energy. Again, filling your whole body, mind. And then the last, the wisdom of composing or writing. You will have texts and wheels of swords you're trying to visualize coming into you or in through the orange colored nectar beams, and then going out, radiating out to the victorious ones, and then bringing back all of that blessings of the wisdom of composing. And so what you do, it's nice when you're doing each visualization, if you have more time, is you recite one of the stanzas, for instance, wisdom of explaining. Please bless me to achieve the wisdom of explaining that gives supreme ascertainment regarding all the meanings of words. Once again, the wisdom of explaining flows forth in the form of orange nectar, filling my body from the atoms of the nectar clarified in the form of text to be explained, light radiated. So this is where it's written in the new version, it's right there. And it reminds you, the wisdom of explaining the victorious ones of the 10 directions and their sons absorbs into me in the forms of text, filling my body. So you read one stanza like that, try to clarify the visualization a little bit, and then, or when you're slower, when we start these practices, it's tedious because we don't know the mantra yet. And it's tongue twisting, and we slowly do it, and a couple weeks later, you'll probably have it memorized. Once you memorize it, it's easier. And then you don't know what you're visualizing. So you read, and after a few weeks, after a couple of months, you just go into the next one, you know exactly what you're, So you don't necessarily have to recite, let's say wisdom of explaining, in the new version. What you do is recite the first 2 lines, please bless me to achieve the wisdom of explaining that gives supreme ascertainment regarding all the meanings of words. So the bottom part is more the description, but I already know that I'm just visualizing the text. So you just do it, then you just go right into the mantra. So it's perfectly fine to do like that, but if you need a refresher of what am I visualizing, you may want to quickly read that section out loud or to yourself, and then however much time you have, recite a few mantras, or you want to recite a mala, it's up to you, like that. Okay, then so those are the main visualizations for the 7 wisdoms. Then we come to requests. This is in the old version, page 16, in the new version, page 18. And here Rinpoche has added in the new version, Rinpoche usually recites these 2 verses, which is the bottom of page 18, 3 times. They can be recited together 3 times, or you can recite the first verse 3 times and then the second verse 3 times. It's up to you. So again, these are heartfelt requests from really strongly making these requests. May my wisdoms of listening, reflecting and meditating increase. May my wisdoms of explaining, debating, composing develop. May I be granted the supreme and common realizations. Please bless me to quickly become like you. May my transcendental wisdom of simultaneously born great bliss arise. May my stains of mistakenly grasping things as real be purified. May my net of doubts that are only mine be cut off. Please bless me to quickly become like you. Maybe some days you don't have enough time to recite 3 times. You can also recite more quickly, it's okay. Do what you can do. If you can recite them 1 time with great feeling, but again, it just explains Rinpoche tends to do them 3 times. You have to see what works in your life and how your mind feels from doing it one way or the other. And again, the more you do it, it can speed up, and it's not about doing it quickly, but we have busy lives, so we're concerned, I can't fit this in my life, but it gets quicker, and you can still have the essence maintained of what you're doing with good focus. We come to, in the old version, page 17, in the new version, page 19, the foundation of all good qualities. If you have time, it's really powerful to read this Lamrim prayer. It's one of our fundamental Lamrim prayers, and if you can, and you're building this in, like this is one of your main practices, is what you can do is slowly, you're going to get a scanning meditation of the Lamrim every time you read it. If you can, and you want to stop at one of the verses and then do that Lamrim meditation at that time, right after the verse, very powerful for your mind depending on however much time you have. If you have 10 minutes, 20 minutes. So a little bit on the side, you want to know what you're going to be meditating on. So if it says, the second verse, understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, is greatly meaningful, is difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly day and night takes its essence. This is the beginning of the Lamrim, precious human rebirth. You have a moment, you read the verse. I've already read the first 2 verses, let's say. So now, if I can just take 10 minutes and visualize one of the freedoms we have in our precious human rebirth is we're free from being in the animal realm. So I'd like to think about most of the animal realm, killing each other. I'll choose an animal, and you can, for a moment, put your mind in the mind of like a lioness in the wild in Africa. Try to think about her life for a moment. What does she go through? And you go through this meditation, realizing a lot of her life is spent looking for food to kill, looking for an animal to kill, feeding her young, mating, sleeping, but continually always eating with an eye looking over your shoulder because you're a wild animal, things could kill you. There's territorial wars between the lion and, maybe you get kicked out of your pride. All the thing of what it is to be an animal like that. Not very pleasant experience. So you can spend a little bit of time like that and then back to your own life, feeling a sense of appreciation. So slowly each time, if you want to meditate on precious human rebirth for a month, then you go through different freedoms, different endowments that make up the precious human rebirth. You could also spend a little bit of time on, for instance, the rarity of how rare it is to become a human that meets the Dharma. And they say things like, if you take a straight pin and you dip it the top in honey, and then you put the top in sand, and then you consider all the sand that's all over the planet, the ones that stick to the top of the pin, that's a precious human rebirth. That's how rare it is compared to all the sand all over the planet. That's how many beings get the precious human rebirth, is that many. Minuscule. So you start to really focus on that deeper and deeper here, and you realize, wow, this is pretty extraordinary. So it boosts your life a bit. It's uplifting for the mind. Anytime the mind's a little bit depressed, sinking, that's the meditation that you want to do. Any of those, precious human rebirth. So then you finish however long you have, if you have the time. This is a really important part. And we read the rest of the prayer. So every day you're getting some cycle of that through your mind. Foundation of all good qualities. In the old version, it goes to the bottom of page 18. In the new version, it goes to the middle of page 22. And now we have on page 19 in the older version, page 22, in the newer version, it says, request to abide at the heart. In the older version, it says the Guru entering the heart. It's the same. And what you'd do is you'd read these 3 verses slowly with some feeling, and then you're going to imagine that Lama Tsongkhapa, again, is over top your crown with the 2 disciples. They merge into him, the 2 disciples, into the center of his heart. And then if you have not had highest yoga tantra initiation, you would imagine that he dissolves into the center of your forehead, right here, okay? Blessing and transforming your body, speech, and mind. So you're receiving all the blessings of his holy body, speech, and mind. He, who is inseparable from the Buddha of infinite wisdom, Buddha of infinite compassion, the Buddha of infinite power, Manjushri, Avalokiteshvara, Vajrapani, and they are inseparable from your own root guru, your own teacher, like that, inseparable. That's the energy I'm getting blessed with. Okay? With highest yoga tantra, then it's a different visualization, slightly. Any understanding you have of emptiness at that point, reflect on that there for as long as you can. And really try to feel that blessing, feel that you've purified something, feel that you have received some of the wisdoms. And then we come on page 20 in the older version to the dedication prayers. And in the new version, it's the bottom of page 23. And it goes to the bottom of page 25. Very important to motivate in the beginning and to read some dedications at the end. And then the long life prayers for His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And those are on page 26 in the new version, page 21 and 22 in the older version. And it also has a dedication for the end of all Guru Yoga practices, and Rinpoche likes you to reflect on, the numberless Buddhas, may I, my family members, and it talks about kind of praying for all these other beings. May we meet virtuous friends in future lives. May we see them as enlightened. May their holy wishes ripen instantly. So you can read that first, after the dedications, and then the long life prayers. Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga practice. And just in conclusion of this little part, let's read that paragraph, dedication prayer for all Guru Yoga practices, due to the merits of the 3 times created by myself and others, and by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Oh, and here in the newer version, due to the 3-time merits collected by myself, the numberless Buddhas, the numberless sentient beings, may I, my family members, all those who rely upon me, all those for whom I promise to pray, all those whose names have been given to me, all the students, benefactors, and volunteers in the FPMT organization, and all sentient beings be able to meet perfectly qualified Mahayana virtuous friends in all our future lives. From our side, may we always see them as enlightened. May we always do only actions most pleasing to their holy minds. May we always fulfill their holy wishes instantly. And let's recite together His Holiness's long life prayer. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And for Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serves the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the 3 sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. So that concludes the brief explanation of the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, and I wanted to ask if there are any questions.